Hey fam, welcome to another episode of Good, Bad, and Ugly about real estate. Do you have a family member who's struggling to find affordable housing or maybe need some help with employment, need some help with some education? Do you have some extra money that you may want to put to a great cause as a nonprofit that's helping people that has these type of struggles in their life? Well, my next guest is going to share with you their journey in real estate and how they're using their nonprofit to help others. So please help me welcome to the stage a friend of mine, Chirag.
Hey, Jose.
I'm a one
Thank
man show, so trying to do the technical things are a little difficult. Well, thanks, man, for coming on. I appreciate it. As I said, I'd love for you to share your journey and how you got to the point where you are today in real estate.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me the platform to be able to do this. So yeah, I have an interesting journey that got me to where I'm at in real estate. I grew up in California. Dad is an architect, so I've been around real estate since I was a kid. Got a chance to see what he did, how he designed certain buildings, and kind of got me like jump started that way. During my college, I went to school for computers and business. Came out, bought my first business. It was a Quiznos sandwich shop. So I got a chance to run that and learn management. During the 2007, 2008 crash, no one was buying $10, $12 sandwiches anymore. They were all buying $5 footlongs, and
Right.
got us to sell that business. And I decided to fall back on management. I don't know, something like I enjoyed the food industry because I loved like serving people and like feeding them. So I went to work for a company called Panda Restaurant Group, if you're familiar with Panda Express.
Yep.
Climbed my ranks up there. And then as I was starting to shift and like get, climb the corporate ladder, the next promotion would have been out of state. So during that time, I started networking myself with a few other high level executives, and I got a position at a company called MS International, MSI. They're the largest national importer for natural stone and tile, and basically they're a wholesale company. So all their clients were working with builders, developers, contractors, designers, and that really opened up my eyes to real estate. Like I got a chance to see what a flipper does and when they buy a brand new house and what it turns into. So I got a chance to see that whole process while just providing a resource for them for their tile and their countertop. So that really kind of got me like exploring like my own like wanting to jump into my own ventures. So around 2012 to 2014, things were shifting for us. I had my second child, and we needed to, like figure out what we were going to do. And my son actually had RSV as a child, and in California, the weather wasn't the best for him. My wife and I, she's actually originally from Florida, where I reside today. My family went to visit Florida for like 3 weeks with my kids and her, and I was stayed back home. Well, my son's health and his breathing got a lot better while he was in Florida. So that kind of opened up our eyes like, well, maybe the humidity and that temperature and that atmosphere is better for him. So in around 2017 to 2018, I started to transition, and we transferred to Florida. And because the company I was working for had another branch, so all overall like cost of living, his health, just kind of, and being back with my wife's family, it kind of made that perfect trifecta for us to shift our family to Florida. So we've
Nice.
been in Florida since 2018, and from 2018 to 2019, I started building up a new market for this company, and again, I felt like I needed to do this stuff on my own. I was working with fix and flippers, developers, so I was like, all right, great. 2019, I joined a friend who was already doing this, and I decided to do some flips. So I ended up getting 5 flips under my belt in South Florida, and I loved it. It was great, you know. So that led us into end of 2019, early 2020, and we all know what happened during that time. Great old COVID shut down everything, right? And that shut down the real estate market too. So it kind of had me like, well, what am I going to do, right? Like the entire country shut down. So I fell back on my management experience and I started working for a company called Sprint at the time, which was eventually bought by T-Mobile.
Right.
So started, doing that corporate thing again. And as the market and like as COVID started doing its thing, and about 2020, we moved up to from South Florida up to Central Florida near Tampa, and kept doing my thing, kept climbing the corporate ladder, got a couple promotions, was doing well, and that same feeling came back again. It's like, I don't know, something about real estate like just made me like, hey, I need to get back into real estate. And unfortunately, with the corporate structure, there was a very difficult time I went through in 2022 to 2023. I'm the kind of person that likes to challenge the status quo, especially if it goes against like my morals and ethics. If there's something that is put out there and I
Right.
don't feel it's right, then I'm going to challenge it. Well, unfortunately, my supervisor at that company didn't like it, and caused a whole world of HR and emotional and psychological things for me, that kind of just started caging me, and like I had to still continue to perform, but it just wasn't right, and I didn't feel right. So I actually went through a very down time on my own, and this is a chance for me to be vulnerable. But I went through a very depressive state because, again, as a man, like we're taught to not cry, push it aside, and just push through. Right? There's always so much of that we could do. So I went through a very difficult time in 2023 that got me to leave corporate America. I left my W-2. I went through some self development, some realization. I was hospitalized for a few days because of all the trouble that I was going through. Came out, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. Got on some medication that helped me, get through that downtime of my life because I didn't know how to manage it. I didn't know how to handle it, right? And this is somebody who's has all the resources and ability to be able to get myself through these things, and I still wasn't able to do that. So 2023, about mid year, I decided to go full force with real estate investing, and this is after coming out, having therapy, learning meditation, getting my own inner peace and personal stuff like worked on. And
Right.
I invested and I bought a couple of rental properties and was like, cool, this is good. I'm moving along. And I'm like looking and I'm like, how are all these other people scaling and they're getting so many more properties? And that's when creative finance and SubTo and a lot of these other ways of acquiring properties came into my world. And I started exploring like, okay, well, this is a whole new level of investing. And it got me to start, meeting some great people. I've got some of my longtime friends are in the same communities, just great human beings of doing good things. So at end of 2023, early 2024, like after going through all the stuff I went through, the hospital, the depression, everything that was growing out of, I started seeing a lot of people talking about how they're making a ton of money in Section 8, right? The 30, 40, $50,000 they're going to make a month. And I was like, cool, I'm gonna look into this. I'm gonna figure out how I'm gonna do this. I literally go to bed that week, wake up on a Saturday morning asking myself, how can I make so much money in Section 8 or try to make that? But the people that are living in these houses are barely making it, right? They're
Right.
barely like surviving. And I'm over here making a ton of money trying to do this. So that right there sparked me to say, like, I've got to create a nonprofit. Like, I have to figure out how I'm going to be able to take the profits, put it back in, you know, into the community that these people are living. And if you look at the research with Section 8, like there's a lot of stuff that's happening currently with the current administration that's showing that they're going to start putting restrictions on stuff, right? Like possibly 2 years that you can have your voucher, because prior the vouchers were getting passed down generation to generation. And a lot of these folks that are staying under the voucher program, they would, it was almost like if they grew out of it, they wouldn't grow enough to make themselves comfortable. So they had to kind of stay where they were so they could have that subsidy. And
Right.
that's a really disturbing thought process, right? Like people who don't want to grow, who are now teaching this to their children and future generations, you're literally stopping like society from growing. And that was just really irked me. So I started this nonprofit. We call it the Pure Soul Foundation, and it has a few meanings to it. So the Pure Soul, I believe, every human being, every life form has a pure soul that they start with, right? Environment, groups of people, things that can cause our minds and our humanity to change because of what we experience. But there's still a pure soul that exists inside. The way it's spelled is pure and then SOL, soul representing the sun in Spanish, as well as SOL standing for steps of life, right? So the pure steps of life to get people from ground level to where they need to go is what we focus on, right? Being
Love
able to help people first, making sure that they're healthy, making sure that they're educated correctly, and then essentially getting sure that their employment is situated. Because if they're not healthy, they don't have the education. You can house people, but how are they going to stay? How are they going to grow? How are they going to teach the family to do better? There really isn't. And being able to sustain a job, there was some more research that we did, and we were wondering why there was no sustainability in any of these things. Well, it came down to mental health. And that was that experience that I experienced in 2023 was, my mental health wasn't the best it could be. I may have made it look like it. I may have been, showing myself in public, but the battles I was fighting in private were extreme. And only people that can vouch for that are my wife and kids, because I would be locked up in a corner and in the dark and I wouldn't want to speak. And I can only imagine how many other people feel this, because there's no one for them to talk to. There's no one for them to be able to like get their point across to. So it just made me realize that there's others that were struggling from this on a day to day, and I had to be able to get out there, share my story, to be able to show people that like, hey, it's okay to come out, especially for men. It's okay to speak out about this, because if we don't, we won't be able to heal. We won't be able to come together as a community, and there won't be any sustainability that's going to come from it. And,
Right.
with technology that's happening, the way everything is going, like we're about to see some of like I mentioned to you before, that I have an AI company that I started in 2023, that we can see where jobs are going to be removed, right? Like literally just removed from society,
Yeah.
and people aren't prepared for that, and that alone is going to be a very, very damaging time. And it's something that we can now proactively work on together.
Sure.
So yeah, that's pretty much the round story, and that's where we are today,
That's a
doing
good
what.
story, man. Don't downplay it. That's awesome. So I have different experienced people watching this, hopefully, right? So you talked about when you first started, you teamed up with somebody down in South Florida, and you had your 5 flips.
Yep.
So did you leverage that person's knowledge to get started in the flips, or did you have to educate yourself in order to get into those deals?
Well, it was interesting, because it was like it was my first like JV type of scenario, before knowing what like joint ventures were like, as I started learning them through these communities. But it was a old college buddy. Unfortunately, that relationship wasn't a great one. It turned out to this person was not the greatest human being in the so well, that's another story. But I was able to be on site. I was able to meet with the subcontractors. I was able to go to the city. So yeah, I was able to leverage their knowledge, but I was kind of teaching myself along the way. And he was there to answer questions, but the real questions I was getting answered were my own. Right? I was like talking to people in the city, permitting, the contractors. I was sending them out. Like he was saying, hey, we need to make sure that these things get done. So it was my job to make sure that, hey, each thing was getting done. I was getting pictures and I was getting it, to where it needed to be. So being able to get it from, when we bought the property to, rentable, to getting the certificate of occupancy. So I got a chance to learn all that process, while it was kind of like something he was already doing. So yeah, I would say I leveraged some of his knowledge at the same time, kind of had to figure my way out.
Right. So, most people that want to get into real estate, they're like, I don't have any money. I don't know how to start because, I don't have a rich uncle. I don't have a grandma that's going to lend me some, uh, have me inherit money.
Yeah.
You said back, I think it was 2022, 2023, that when you decided to start getting back into investing in real estate.
Yeah.
And this is before you started understanding how to leverage like SubTo and all the other creative financing. How are you getting into deals if you didn't have your own money?
So at that time, I actually had money saved up, right? That
Okay.
was how and that's how I got into traditional. So it was funny because after I purchased my properties, I was like, man, I could have probably bought five more if I knew about this creative finance like 5 months before, right? And,
Sure.
but it comes down to, now that I look at it, it's like, okay, well, I have certain things I can provide for myself. Like I'm able to provide certain value. Well, meaning like I can join a team, I can put in certain work, right? For example, wholesaling, right? I can do acquisitions, I can do dispositions, I can do these things for other teams that I can generate revenue because of my work that I can put out there. So,
Sure.
being able to, I mean, I still have my hands, computer, access to the internet. So as long as I have the will and the effort to put work in and be consistent with it, then there's a lot of teams that are willing to take me on to be able to put that work in, and I can make a portion of the deal that could be a couple of $1,000s that I can continue to stack up, and now I'll have my own funds to do so, and invest. Right, that's what I would have done if I didn't have my own funds to do.
Gotcha. So, some people may like, what is this creative finance thing you keep talking about? Can you kind of give a, high level 10,000 foot view type of thing of how you've leveraged creative financing to get into more deals?
Yeah, I mean, so when I learned about creative finance, it was like I knew about it like a little bit here and there because seller finance has been around for like such a long time, where a
Sure.
seller will finance their deal. And when when I was getting into investing, I didn't know any different. Like I thought, you need money, you need to go buy 20%, purchase. Now I own, I keep going, and like that was it, right? Bill, we have a couple of great communities that we were part of, like SubTo, where you can, take over the payments of a mortgage and being able to now acquire the deed to that property, right? That's subject to being able to get into a deal that way. Then there's, obviously seller finance. Then there's the combination of loan and seller finance. So there's, it basically, ideally, any way you can get creative to get into a deal legally that works for seller and buyer to make the deal happen, right? Versus just saying, hey, I need to have X amount of money and I need to get approved by a loan from a bank, right? This is the opportunity to get into a deal that may not include bank requirements because there's so much red tape that needs to happen. But this deal makes sense and I know I can make it work. So wherever a creative conversation can happen between seller and buyer to make a deal happen, and it's all done by the books, I feel creative is creative, right? Like I can kind of do anything in between the two.
Absolutely. So, darn, I lost my train of thought there. Um, so you've been doing this for a while. You said back, I think 2007, 8 is close to when you started. Everybody that's been in real estate, they always have a good story and a bad story. Can you kind of share, one that kind of sticks out that, gives a good feeling that you were a part of, and then a story, and it doesn't matter which order, that, you kind of, it was a bad story, but you kind of learned from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, when it comes to real estate, being around it since I was a kid, I would say the good stories are, I would say, are more now. They're more recent, right? Because it's the why, the big why that has been driving me is I want to eliminate the word homelessness, and I want to make
Hmm.
it a dictionary word, right? Like when I talk to my kids about VHS tapes, DVDs, they're like, "What is that?" and they're like they have to like research it. That's my why. I want that to be what happens for future generations with homelessness and poverty. So I would say the more recent stories where we are working on a veterans community here in Dade City, being able to have the right people behind it, having some healthcare organizations behind it that are going to be supporting us as we build out the resources for veterans here in a city that's local in my county. That is, I would say, my highlight of what I'm doing on the real estate development side. The bad story, I would say, um, I don't have a extreme bad story right now, but I would say when I was younger and I was looking to get into real estate with early on, like learning it with my dad,
Yeah.
we got excited about like certain projects that were happening, and they just never panned out, and it really kind of deflated my interest in real estate because we were looking at new cities that were developing. My dad owned some land; he's sold it and everything, but I was like getting hyped up about. We would travel to certain cities, we would go see things, and then things shifted, and it just deflated my want and desire at that time for real estate. And I look back and I said, now I would never let my light, like my feelings, get deflated, because real estate is an up and down system, right? So it could,
Sure.
like, just real estate itself will go up and it'll go down. I should be able to look at that and be consistent in the long term. Is that no matter what I'm going to be doing, what is my why? I'm looking to house people. If I'm looking to house people, I want to make sure they have a roof over their head. So that I feel like anything that happens, whether it's a good, bad, or ugly story, like as long as my why and my drive is there, I mean, I could lose $50,000 and find a way to make it up with 150,000 the following year, as long as that I have that drive. Like, hey, I want to house a family. I want to make sure that the father and mother have health care, they have the education, the kids have the education, and they have the right employment to get them to be able to sustain this housing. So I would say like the benefit and the happy part of it is that I I get to teach these folks and these families how to maintain housing and be able to get to that level of employment so that
Hmm.
they can have something to teach their kids, because generations that they've been in these vulnerable populations, they don't teach them this stuff. It's, I mean, same thing with us. When we went to school, did we have the ability to invest in real estate and learn about all this? No, it wasn't there, right? I That's what I seek to provide for these future generations, even my kids. I'm telling them like, hey, college is great if you're gonna go get a specialty, but if you're not like gonna be a specific like focus, like you can get so much more education, like just learning finance and real investing, and it'll teach you things that you would have never learned, and you'll be way better off than so many people out there. So, but yeah, I mean, that's essentially, my bad story, unfortunately, it had to do with me and my ability to handle all this stuff that
You're going
I was
through.
supposed to as a man. And
Yeah.
you know that I would say that's the one thing I would like for people to do, is be open, even as a man. Like as a kid, like I'm in my 40s, right, mid 40s this year. I'm Indian, and we're taught not to speak up or like hold things in, and like that's not healthy. It's like we need to.
Hispanic culture is the same way. Don't feel bad.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's the one thing I want people to understand, is that our egos are the first thing that need to go.
Sure.
And for once that's there, everything, real estate, family, personal life, all the things that are tied to it become so much better and so much smoother.
I would say that's actually a positive for you because so many people that struggle with mental health um, are not strong enough to push through. Right? They drown themselves. They find vehicles to kind of like numb themselves to the pain that they're feeling.
Oh yeah.
The fact that you were able to be strong enough to recognize that you had something going on and that you needed to find a way to push through it is a testament to you. And it just gives people something that says that, if you push through and you start taking care of yourself and finding ways to um, work on yourself, like you said, with the meditation and stuff like that, um, there is light at the end, other side of the tunnel, as they say, right?
Of course. I didn't get to mention this, but part of the reason I ended up getting hospitalized, I started abusing alcohol again. So I was clean for 10 years. And the abuse of alcohol, because like you mentioned, numbing it, I didn't get a chance to mention, but it just allowed me to get past a lot of that stuff. And with alcohol, tolerance just builds. So it started with a few shots, then it ended up with a few fifths. And next thing was like I'm drinking on an empty stomach. And that was the thing that my wife felt like. She was at work one day and I had gone to the local 7-Eleven, picked up some wine bottles, and I started drinking like at 7:30 in the morning. No, there was no reason for her to think any otherwise, but something inside her felt like, hey, something is wrong. So she had sent the neighbors over to check on me, and the neighbors tried to wake me up for about a minute and a half, and I wouldn't wake up. And that's when they took me to the hospital, saying, "Look, okay, we need to get you some help." And I came out of that. I've been sober since March 2023, and
Congratulations.
I just recently gave up nicotine. Actually, I was vaping for 6 years, and it was 3 weeks yesterday that I gave that up. Thank you. You know, but it comes down to like, who is my support group? Do I have the right people that I'm able to support and that is able to support me?
Right.
And that's been the biggest help.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that with us, man. So, people, I'm trying to bring this to light, showing people different ways of investing in real estate,
Yep.
showing that, people do struggle to get to where they are. If somebody wanted to follow you, see how your journey is going, if somebody wanted to get involved with your nonprofit to help people with housing and education and employment, how would they be able to do that?
Yeah, for sure. So you can follow me. I have an Instagram. It's at the real Chirag Patel, and that's ChiragPatel, my first and last name. Then our nonprofit website is thepuresoul.org, the puresol.org. And my email is executive director at thepuresoul.org. And any which way of those, or you can call me 813-785-1809. Text me. That's probably the fastest way to get a hold of me, and easiest way for me to communicate.
Awesome, dude. All right, guys. Well, Chirag, thank you so much for spending time with us, sharing your journey, giving us these nuggets of how to invest, how you invested, and hopefully it inspires other people to get involved. And also, if they are, who may be watching this, struggling with some mental health, understand that there are ways to get through it. So I appreciate you. Congratulations on your strength and your win on and getting past that. So people watching this again, here's another person who um, didn't start off. He did with his dad, but I mean, he learned. He taught himself. So if it's something that you want to do, educate yourself. Partner with Shirag. He can help you get involved. If you like the information that's going on, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, Shirag.
Thanks, Jose. Appreciate you.